Security, escort this gentleman out, please.
Come on, Soda Pop, let's go.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, calling a special election on the issue of whether the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota should build an administrative office building and associated site improvements.
Public.
Councilor Stehly, did you want to address this, or Councilor Starr?
We're going to have public input
Well,
first?
first we normally go someone who kind of explains it, and that's one of you two.
Well, okay, well, I have a few comments that I would like to make.
Oh, go right
That will
ahead.
explain it, okay. Well, first of all, I wanted to say, to express my deepest gratitude to my fellow council members who have walked together in this effort these past 5 months concerning this administration building. And 4 of them are those of us who were newly elected. This has been a long journey. We came into this newly elected position with the bond issue and the administration building weighing heavily upon our hearts. Many of us heard from citizens during our campaign about these citizens' concern for this building. We passionately sought ways within the council to do what we felt was best for our community. That resulted in a repeal ordinance in July. We did this to give the council more time to consider less expensive options. In the midst of all this discussion, since we've been elected, we've been hearing that our sales tax revenue growth is not growing the way it was anticipated, which has, to me personally, come into my concern about this building at this time, because we're going to have operational costs. It's going to come out of the second penny for the building of this, so it's just another expenditure in the midst of all our other obligations. We did the repeal. It passed by 5-3. We were successful. A week later, the mayor vetoed this in his first veto. And of course, moving onward to sell the bonds. Immediately after the veto, a group called Stop the Funding started a petition drive. They collected 6,400 signatures in 3 weeks, which is really a phenomenal feat. I have heard from many people who feel that the public should be voting on this. And I've heard from people who support the building, but they really are standing behind the need for a vote on this issue. I know that this council has given support to the petitioners and to those who signed the petition. This advisory election that we're going to be voting on tonight gives the council an opportunity to tell the community that we want them to have a voice in this issue. If and when the mayor sells the bonds and starts to build this building, he will then be responsible for stopping the election. All of our efforts at that point will be invalidated. But until then, we can go forward to show the public that we want to set an election. So I'm hoping that tonight we're going to continue to show the leadership. We're going to bring hope to the public. We're going to give support to the citizens and vote yes to set an advisory election.
Councilor, thank you. Folks, this is now an opportunity for you to engage the council if you're interested on this topic. Really, the same rules apply. We just ask you to introduce yourself, keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, probably with one caveat. If there are multiple speakers, we would ask you to try to keep your comments as unique as possible, not to duplicate, and normally folks do a really good job of that. Welcome.
Bruce Danielson, Stop the Funding, co-chair with Kermit Staggers. And we handed out a bunch of petitions to everybody, and I'd just like the council to know how many people here are supporting our petition drive. We ask you to listen to the signatures. We're here to talk about an interesting multi-million-dollar sales tax revenue bonding issue. It's disguised as an unnecessary office building. Despite stories to the contrary, this started a bit over a year and a half ago. A select group of insiders were shapers and then decision makers of this project. As citizens became more aware, they asked for more information. We received little. Oh, sure, we got this story today, that story yesterday, but we never did receive the information we asked for. Now before the court, there are 6,400 signatures of very frustrated voters. This administration hates citizens who fight to know what is going on in a government they own. This government is not a playground only for those elected. It is here for all. We see things everywhere and ask, why is the tail wagging the dog? Why is it the city clerk only cares about council leadership and the mayor? At the start of this petition, why did the chief election officer refuse to examine both petition pages when asked to by me? By the way, why does the city refuse to help citizens in constructing a proper petition in form, function, and law so it is correct? We learned in the 2014 election cycle how the city attorney was able to rewrite the meaning of our petitions. We have learned again never to trust anything that comes from a city office. Our 6,400 signatures is a small portion of the people who are asking for advice on how to change Sioux Falls city government again. We've also heard words like recall. This room and City Hall are causing this. There will be changes coming. We do not know what form it will be. When started in July, officials promised to find fault with our petitions from the start. Guess what? Your staff succeeded, Mr. Mayor. I used the wrong oath and it now requires a judicial act to remedy. We had a short period of time to act after your veto. We succeeded in getting the signatures we needed. Using the clerk's own formula he supplied to me, we verified a 4.98% signature rate, exceeding even our expectations. I can supply the results to him to help him verify if he still hasn't gotten his work done. Our town has a crackerjack legal department of 10 or more attorneys. Why, with such top-notch legal beagles on staff, do we have to once again wait for a consultant to do a writ of mandamus hearing? Something stinks here. Mr. Fifley won the Spellerberg pool ballot language issue in a 2014 courtroom. Why the wait now? Oh yeah, back to your mission of running out the clock. The citizen avoidance by several members in front of me is being met with an angst I've never seen before with voters. This is an election year of upset voters. You will find members of the dais part of this discontent. I finished tonight and asked the speakers who may follow to be polite and direct. We do ask the dais to consider the following. The rewriting of history and gaming the system will not be forgotten in future elections. No matter what happens here tonight, could this still be the start of the 2018 election season for some, or the start of an unknown 2017 election season? The people sitting behind me, with many more at home watching, are upset because of the systemic abuse this administration has perfected. Are we to get ready for a bumpy 19 months in Sioux Falls city government? Are you all ready for a ride? Thousands of Sioux Falls and South Dakota citizens are watching to see if this dog can wag its tail. So we ask you tonight, listen to the signatures, and please waive your petitions. Thank you.
Folks, anybody else want to engage? Welcome.
I'm Roger Elgersma, 301 South Spring. This is an expensive little building. The purpose is to put all the city offices in one building. And sometimes different departments have to interact, but the only office that all the departments have to interact with is the mayor's office. The mayor's office is not going to be there. And so the basic purpose isn't completely fulfilled. If you bought the 300 building, you could put all the offices in there, and you could sell this building, and you could sell City Hall, and that money could go toward remodeling and buying the 300 building. There's people have some concerns I see in the newspaper and so on, that what if the petition, or now the council vote, puts this to a vote of the people? What if somebody ignores it? Well, state precedent is that once the vote goes to the people, everything stops. We already have a state law that says that teenagers are supposed to be getting paid less now on minimum wage. But that didn't happen because it's going to go to the vote. So people speculating on somebody isn't going to follow it doesn't prove that they are. But the way City Hall spends money, I think there's got to be some way to get credibility back. You spent 30-some million on this railroad thing, which is no plan to develop it. It's terribly hard to develop it. You spend all this federal money, and it's not just federal money. It's our state's allotment for transportation, which means it takes away money from city buses and bridges and roads. And this money went to a thing that doesn't even have a street, every street, and it's long and narrow, and you can't get railroad siding. Another questionable project. You developed this space on the northwest corner of town for industrial development where you can have rails. Well, I rode my bike down Rice Street going, to Laverne one day to visit my mom. But anyway, that's a flat place. And there's a half a dozen businesses. You let businesses develop where it fits. The railroad is on level ground there. This piece on the northeast, more northwest part of town has hills. That's not a good place to develop for business or rail. So if you want credibility with the people on how you invest money, I think it, even a courtesy just to let the people vote on this one. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Manny Steele, Sioux Falls citizen. No notes, so it'll be short, but I'd like to reiterate a little bit what I said last week. And I referred to tennis terms as mayor, you're a tennis player. I mentioned that the ball is in your court, and you can either soft lob it back to the city's citizens so that they would be able to have an opportunity in a say, whether they vote for this or against it. They got an opportunity to be part of this. Or you have the choice to do an overhead slam right back into the citizens' court, and that very possibly would end it tonight. Whichever way you choose to do it, Mr. Mayor, the people will remember this for a long, long time. Thanks for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Mike Gunn, Sioux Falls. As I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the petition that I and many others have signed is being considered invalid. I believe that the reasoning on this is an incorrect oath. Given that the forms were given, then received, plus certified by the city clerk, leaves many questions. What is the procedure for correcting this form or issue? I ask this question since the form is in question was given, received, and certified by the City of Sioux Falls clerk. The idea that this form had an issue with the oath on it should have been reviewed by the clerk before it was allowed to be received, as well as after all the petitioners had signed. My question is, does this create procedures set by the mayor and the administrative departments controlled by the mayor to mislead or create a fraudulent loophole by the city to prevent the people from the right to due process? Should this process be so confusing that most citizens would have to waste time and money to express their voice? In this particular case in point, all signatures should be counted and transferred to the proper form without prejudice, since the entity controlled by the city and its administration offices failed to do its job. If it were reversed, what would the city say against the citizen? Who should be held at the utmost accountability in any case, the citizen or those elected? If the city clerk is not trained properly in such matters, it should be noted that they may have to be retrained, re-educated, or whichever, so that they can better serve the citizens to have the correct paperwork to be able to bring their grievances to you. So I just don't understand how something so minor of an oath on a petition can throw out our petition. What about your oath of office? How much should we put on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome.
Scott Erickson, Sioux Falls. Just a couple of things. First thing is that I know I've talked to some of you about this already. Voting yes for this election doesn't hurt a thing, and it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. As someone previously pointed out, if the bonds get sold or whatever happens, the election can easily be repealed. Nobody's hurt, no taxpayer money spent. It's done. So you might as well just vote for the election, hope that the bonds don't get sold, and we don't know how that's gonna happen. Could be a judge, could be the mayor changing his mind, could be lots of stuff. My second part is, I just want to be honest with you guys. There are no winners and losers in all of this. This isn't a fight. And I've tried to remind people that all the time. This isn't us against the council or the mayor or the city attorney or the city clerk. This is about us. This is our money you are spending. $1 million a year mortgage. Don't even know what the operation costs would be. Maintenance, we're talking well into $40 million of money. This is why it's important to the citizens to have an election. They believe it's above your pay scale. They believe it should be their right to decide whether this money gets spent. And to tell you the truth, there's a lot of people who want more administration space. They don't like this plan. This ain't about you. Let the citizens decide this. It's really easy. You can wash it off your back. Not nothing to do with you anymore. No winners or losers. There's no fight here. Just vote for this election. And hopefully a judge or somebody has an enlightenment and says, don't sell these bonds. And we can all move on. Thank you.
Welcome.
Dan Daly, Sioux Falls. The council can go home now. The mayor has decided. He's overridden you twice. We don't need you anymore. I hope this matter goes to state Supreme Court. I will be there to testify. I've taken you to court before, and I won. There are lots of lawyers that will give their time pro bono. I know some of them. You got to be careful. There's something wrong with the charter. This government is unconstitutional. You regularly deny citizens due process. Who went to court lately? The city attorney has a method to prevent you so that you're not sued. There's something really wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Folks, so far, it's been good for the most part in terms of not doubling up on the same comments. Really appreciate that. Comments so far, consider buying another building or another piece of property. It's a questionable expense or investment. Much discussion on the topic of the petition procedures or the forms. There was one person who said this will have an impact on all of your future elections or my future elections, I guess, whether you're running or not running. Talk about how the city charter is not constitutional. Maybe let the courts decide. One citizen blamed the process on the mayor, the administration, and the city clerk for the mistakes that were made with the petition. No cost for the election if the bonds are purchased. One comment is that the councilor should not have the ability to decide on such an item like this because taxpayer dollars are being spent. I tried to capture, a lot of that. Folks, anything else that's unique that you'd want to inform the council on? No, not on this topic. No. Welcome.
I'm David Zokaitis, and I just had to put my 2 cents in. It should be government for the people. I guess there's been some problems with the petition. I don't know, maybe the petition process needs some work. Whatever. I mean, stuff goes on. Just try to fix it and keep moving. But I think what you should notice is that a whole bunch of people signed a petition to vote on a building. Well, I mean, regardless of anything else, you should honor that. A whole bunch of people signed a petition to vote on a building. I mean, government for the people would say that regardless of any legal problems, that you would allow that vote to go on, because that's government for the people.
David, thank you. And folks, I think that comment's been made probably 4 times tonight, but David, thank you for sharing it again. Appreciate it. Folks, anything else that you wanted before I turn? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Susan Merritt. I came to my first city council meeting last week because I'm concerned about the building, and I went away really disappointed. My husband didn't come back tonight because we just felt like, excuse the expression if there's any PETA people in it, but we're kicking a dead horse. And I thought, I'm just going to let this go because it's already been decided by a few people. And this morning, I volunteered at the Bishop Dudley House, and I was visiting with one of the employees there, and she was talking about how the room we were sitting in would be empty of clients if they could get the kind of mental health access and drug and alcohol abuse help, about the poverty, the different things that that our city is lacking. And I guess my main point is that our people, I used to think Sioux Falls was really affluent, and I began substituting in the Sioux Falls public school system, and it became so obvious that there is such disparity among the different schools, especially elementary schools and middle schools, in the opportunities, the income, the health, the abuse, the things in this town. And I had always thought this was a really wealthy city, and that we do really good things with our money, but I live pretty much on the south side of town. And it's not like that everywhere. And there's so many more important things than bricks and mortar. And it isn't even this building. I don't even really know if you need this building, but it's the constant spending of our money for buildings. And this city is not buildings, this city is people. And there are so many needy people in this town. And I'm not saying that anything you're going to do is going to fix all of that. But our tax money should be spent more for the people and for the people who pay the taxes. And it would empty a lot. It would make a lot more room, if not empty our prisons. It would empty the Bishop Dudley House. We wouldn't have hundreds of kids coming for free lunch in the mornings and having needing special treats and bags to take home. This town is not as well off as people think it is, and I have written a couple letters, and I felt that I was treated fairly arrogantly by the responder. I was pretty much, we need this building, you're the only person that has voiced any opposition. It was 10-1. And I guess I think if what I'm saying is that unpopular, why are you afraid to let us vote? It's our money. You can do it legally. That doesn't mean it's right just because it's legal. Let us please have a vote on this. Thank you.
Susan, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Council, Councilor Stehly discussed the item first initially. Is there anybody else who wanted to discuss the item, Council? Councilor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
For me tonight, we're here to consider an ordinance calling for a public vote on this administration building. We're past the point of discussing whether we need it or don't need it. Tonight is strictly about hearing the 6,400 plus people who petitioned us and requested a vote. The people who went out of their way to sign this petition need to be heard. And I want to be one of the people tonight to say, I've heard you. I've heard your desire to be heard on this issue and bring a public vote forward. That's what we're discussing tonight with this ordinance. It's either we hear you or we don't hear you. And for me, as a representative of the people in the Northeast District of Sioux Falls, as well as the entire city of Sioux Falls, my vote yes means that I did hear you. You don't care about how the form was. You went out of your way to sign it. You spent time circulating the petition with your neighbors. You were very active in this process in a very short amount of time. I would say that it was a record amount of time to collect the signatures in such a short time. And for me, I'm voting yes because I feel that representing those 6,400 people, they need to be heard and we need to have a vote.
Councilor Starr, did you want to make a motion to approve?
I would love to. I would move to approve this.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilor Stehly's made a motion to second it. Thank you. Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a really, really tough spot to be in. I've certainly walked alongside this process for some time now, being the only counselor left that did not support moving this forward. I did support pausing it. I'm not saying I don't think we need something at some point, but I wanted to start over, and the plan that we had brought forward was to have a more collaborative effort with the state, the county, and the city before the train left the building. And that was my concern. You know, tonight we've heard a lot about concerns in regards to the form. And I know I'm getting off a little bit of what this ordinance, what this ordinance says. I've had great conversations with other counselors as well as our staff in regards to maybe a safeguard to making sure that doesn't happen. Now, I know the former clerk and I know this current clerk, and I respect them greatly, and I know that they would help anyone that walked into that office. If you said, give me a petition, they would give you the petition front and back. That doesn't mean that it's certified front and back. However, I know that's happened in the past because for me as a candidate, I wanted to make sure that I did not I just didn't trust myself in knowing the right form, and I knew when I went to the clerk that they would give me that form. Didn't mean that they certified the front and back, but I know Tom would have done that. I know Lori did it for me. Is that a conversation that we have in the future to ensure that happens? Maybe it is, and we've talked about that. Going to this ordinance specifically, like I said, it is a tough spot to be in. It's not that I don't think the people should vote for this and have a voice to say, the train has left the station. This vote, unfortunately, will not accomplish that for you. Let's be very, very honest. If we approve this advisory vote this evening, it will not accomplish the vote, creating a false hope for you and for every citizen that may not really understand the process. And that's unfortunate, and it's frustrating also. I would love for you to have an opportunity to vote. It's not going to happen. Let's be honest. Like I said, I'm in a tough spot this evening. It's unfortunate. I do support the efforts of the initiated measure and do hope that walking through the court system that they get the answers that they need and that this can eventually be moved forward and that we as a council can move forward and tackle the next issues that come forward. We have a lot of things going on in our community and we need to regroup, we need to move forward, and we need to accomplish the next tasks in this community. Thank you.
Councilor Selberg.
Excuse me, thank you. Yeah, it's a tough night. I mean, I hear you as well. As Pat said, Councilor Starr, as stated last week, I admire those who made the efforts to get the petition signed. I, like all of you, made my opposition known by leading, voting, and speaking loudly on the issue on numerous occasions. And while I appreciate the efforts and sentiments of the supporters, the people who have reached out, the people who have signed petitions, we also have to look at the reality of process and time. We brought this up in July for a reason. The clock was ticking. We took this through the process provided. If I believed this vote would happen and would make a difference, I would be in, but unfortunately it won't. Not only will the train have left the station by June, it'll be pretty much almost to its destination. We're asked to lead, and while saying yes tonight would be the easier way to go, and it would make a lot of us feel better, sometimes leadership is having to tell it like it is, even if it's unpopular and not what you or I want to hear. And for the record, Mr. Fifley, Mr. Greco, the mayor and his administration are decent people and good public servants. This conspiracy theory talk does not help. That dialogue does not get us any further, and I disagree with that portion of it. But I do appreciate the efforts that all of you made in signing these petitions, all you've done to reach out. And again, it's a tough night, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Councilors, thank you. Councilor Neitzert.
I echo what Councilors Selberg and Erickson said, and so I'll try not to be repetitive. I do want to say that I do recognize the citizens and the voters who worked so hard on this. I signed the petition. I was against this building. I brought the repeal forward, and I wanted it to succeed. So I'm tempted to vote for it as a symbolic show of solidarity, but what I keep coming back to is just reality, which is that this ordinance doesn't do anything. It will not be effective until after October 1st. It calls for an election we all know is never going to happen. It sets a date of election well after October 1st. It does nothing to stop the mayor from bonding, which would render the election completely moot, and the election isn't even binding, as I stated. My biggest concern is it's going to create the false impression that citizens will get to vote on this. It's going to create more anger, division, and bitterness when the bonding occurs and the citizens are told the election won't happen. And then it's going to force us to open the wound again when we have to repeal this advisory election after the bonding occurs. As stated, we brought the repeal forward back in July for a reason. It was the only way we could do something that would be legally binding. The time has passed and the decision is out of our hands, whether we like it or not. We did all we could that could actually make a difference. The only venue left, frankly, is the court, and we need to let that process play out. Only the court can stop the bonding, and only the court can order the initiative process to continue. So, essentially, as Councilor Selberg has stated, I could take the easy way out. I could vote for this. I could pander to the voters and say, I voted to give you an election, knowing in my heart, in my gut, in my mind, that I didn't, that I was deceiving you. And I'm just not going to deceive the citizens. This is not going to get you an election, so I have to vote no.
Councilor Kiley. Councilor Vice Chair Kiley.
Thank you. Really, everything that I needed to say on the advisory vote has been stated by Councilors Erickson and Selberg and Neitzert, and I do appreciate everything they stated. I do want to stand up for our city clerk, for our attorney, and for everybody else that's been thrown under the bus unjustly. The comment was made that never again trust anything that comes from the city office. I want to make this perfectly clear. The petition forms did not come from any city office. It did not come from our city clerk. Only Mr. Danielson or somebody within Mr. Danielson's organization can explain where they came from. He said he's erred, but at the same time, he's thrown so many other people under the bus unjustly. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Councilor Chair Rolfing.
I'm going to be short and sweet. I really do appreciate the interest tonight. What's gone on, the effort for the signatures, for the petition, and all that kind of thing. I think that's great. We have those things set up in our Constitution and our charter to get that done. However, it fell short. And it seems like the negative people have taken over for the positive people in this situation. Let me explain what I mean by that, because I want to speak a little bit for the people that are on the other side. I literally have had it 10-1 or more on the other side saying, you guys are doing the right thing. We need the building. We need to go ahead with it. Will you please do your job as an elected official that we elected you to do and get the building built, and let's move on. So, I know we need, and sometimes we don't appreciate some people, but I'm talking that the small minority sometimes is wagging the dog, the tail is wagging the dog instead of the dog wagging the tail. And so I want to make sure everybody knows that this is not something that is 100% people are negative for. I'm having it at least 10 to 1 the other way. So I will again vote no on this, and we need to move forward as a city. We need to move forward and be progressive and get things done, and this is one way to do it. Thank you.
Councilor Stehly, do you have unique comments?
I do have some comments, yes. And let me say, well, I get a chance to weigh in again on this part of it. And I think that we're hearing a defeatist attitude here on this council. What we, Councilor Starr and I have proposed on this is not illegal. We have never I did not bring this forth in any way, shape, or form to have anything against our city clerk. I am doing this as a gesture of regard and care for our citizens. And I do believe that we could certainly make this thing happen. I'm disappointed to hear people say before we're even having our vote that they're voting no on this. I was so encouraged last week when we had 5 people vote yes. And I will continue to support the people who signed that petition. I don't think it's a minority. I don't think it's negative that the citizens got involved with this. And so I'm disappointed of what I've heard tonight, but I feel good about what I have said. I do believe in our public. I believe in your ability and right to vote on items of great expenditures.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Neitzert.
No.
Rolfing.
No.
Selberg.
No.
Starr.
Yes.
Stehly.
Yes.
Erickson.
No.
Erpenbach.
No.
Kiley.
That has failed 2-6.
Y'all come back now. Here.
What kind of morons run this outfit?